Good morning and good afternoon, my Merry Marvelites. Our Merry Marvelites, as always, I am Christian Bladt, joined by number one Hulkamaniac himself, Michael X. Shirley,
Hey, brother.
and the fan of the mini Hulkster that he just held up to the camera, Count Eric Connor. Hello, sir. Hello, brother.
Let me tell you something, brother.
Yeah, just be careful what part of his career you're pulling quotes from when you quote Terry Hogan. That early part is when it's fine to use the quotes.
Usually the other way around, by the way.
What's that?
Like in the past, they don't look so good. You know,
Who doesn't?
Because things don't age well sometimes.
You mean like Terry Hulk Hogan hasn't
like
aged
quotes?
well?
Yeah, you would think like maybe quotes didn't age well with time, but with him, it's kind of the opposite.
Well,
yeah, his early quotes were much better.
Lightly aged like amongst the finest wines, of course, is our friend Nate Miller, who joins us to talk She-Hulk today. Hello, Nate. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. Happy to be here.
Yeah, you missed a riveting 2 moments of conversation about Hulk Hogan, but it's a holdover from last week. Michael actually made sure to wear his Hulkamaniac shirt.
I saw that.
Yeah, and
brother.
It's all right. Nobody has to have anything. I don't have like a DVD collection of Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling to hold up, but I wish I did. In any case, Nate, I wanted to start with you because you were not with us last week, and there's also not that much to say about episode 2 due to its brevity. So I wanted to give you a moment, just your expectations going into this series and what you thought you got from episode 1, sort of giving us all that backstory about She-Hulk.
Yeah. So I guess going into it, I really didn't have that much expectations. She-Hulk is one of those characters that like I'm familiar with, but I'm not like intimately familiar with. So I really wasn't sure what direction they were kind of go in, especially for a solo show with her. But I really enjoyed the first episode. I think, especially from the MCU shows that we've seen, I think it immediately understands what it is. And very well plays within that space of like the kind of humorous but also still some serious emotional character development and stuff that's going on. I think the casting is awesome, and I was a little worried about how she would look hulked out, but I think that they're doing a pretty good job. The CG is not too distracting in the scene she's in with like regular people. So I don't know. I've been enjoying it a lot. Also, too, I really like Mark Ruffalo, and I've always kind of liked Hulk. I like the Incredible Hulk, even though a lot of people are not super big on that movie.
You're talking about the Ed Norton one, not the Ang Lee one.
Yeah, I mean, I do like that one too, but not as much as I like the Ed Norton one more. But
yeah, I think that I agree. I did like the Ed Norton one for a story of the Hulk. There's always very narrow parameters for Hulk stories.
Mm-hmm.
So at least up until that point. But yeah, I did like sort of the recap of the events of the Hulk movie, and then also the conversation with Bruce where he says, "I'm literally a different person now." I thought that those little like tongue-in-cheek, to me that's more fun than her talking to the camera.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm also curious too how far they're going to take that, both because I mean you can only break the fourth wall in so many ways, so many times, and like her talking to the audience, and then also like direct nods in the dialogue to things in real life. And then also too, I noticed like when she was walking through the office, there was like those comic books in there. So I don't know if they're gonna go like the comic book route, like in the books where like they make books based on the hero's real adventures. I mean, I know we saw like the musical in the Hawkeye show. So obviously there's some type of media based on heroes and stuff. So I think all that's
Yeah,
really
I mean,
interesting.
it's the idea that there's comics published in the Marvel universe is something that they've had for a while, and obviously they're just recapping adventures. They don't have stories about their secret identities. The most meta thing I remember from the mid '80s was the Captain America comic book in the Captain America comic book. So the book within the book ended up being drawn by Steve Rogers. That they went a little cutesy on that. So it'll be interesting to see. And I agree with you that breaking the fourth wall from a narrative standpoint, Eric, there's times where it works, and back when we were all able to watch Kevin Spacey on our screens, I think that was the thing that really divided people. Let's just talk about the first season of House of Cards, not where it went after that. Was just the way that he would start, talking to the screen. And I think that some people can embrace it, and some people are like, "Yeah, I don't like it." What are your thoughts for as a device in general, Eric, and then also how they're using it on this show?
Well, I mean, like Fleabag, if you've seen it, is one I think does it so brilliantly, where it will do it like mid sentence sometimes, like and also Phoebe, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is so great at it. Like her timing is brilliant, so it works.
Right.
I agree. I don't need much of it with this. I do like them. Like in the pilot, I thought it was really funny when she did it right up front. But they've been spare with it, which I think is the right move because I don't think like what you were saying, Nate. And by the way, hi Nate, it's good to see you again. It's going to be diminishing returns. I think unless you really like go nutty with it, work it totally in the DNA, like a Fleabag, like a Ferris Bueller. It will work, but they haven't really done that. So I think they're smart to be like, all right, not too much, like the occasional side or the occasional explanation. But I just hope they don't lean too hard in it in future episodes. But it hasn't pulled me out at this stage, and it definitely set up a nice tone right up front. But yeah, I just don't think it needs to go too hard on that for it to work. And if anything, if they do too much of it, it will stop working.
What do you think, Michael? Obviously, sort of, this fourth wall breaking, but then also these first two episodes in general. I did not ask you before we started. I have no idea how you feel 2 episodes into She-Hulk, and I wait with bated breath because I know the answer could be literally anything.
I don't mind fourth wall breaking at all. What I really have a problem with in storytelling, and I think two really good examples of this, like male and female, Dexter and Sex and the City. I hate when the narrator is telling me every little thing like I'm an idiot. Like I am so stupid. I can't figure out any visual clues on the screen. So for me, when the fourth wall is broken or there's like a little nod, or a wink at the camera, to me, that's like acknowledging the audience without thinking they're stupid. So I think that that's welcome in this. It's just a different way to tell a story. I think that's a big problem for me with all this. It's starting to get a little repetitive, like we know kind of how the crescendos and how all the seasons work and the big bad at the very end. And I think it's good to find new ways to tell the stories because it's going to get boring. We're already 20 years in almost practically with this franchise. So in regards to the show, this episode, as you guys have alluded to, seemed very short. But also, at the same time, when you think about it, a lot happened in the episode. Maybe it wasn't as visually impactful as the first episode. Maybe that kind of made things kind of seem like they were speeded up a little bit. But I'm hoping, and I never thought I would say this, I'm hoping this show would go in a direction kind of how the Arrowverse Flash show where they were getting like these new like little mini minor villains almost every episode. And I'd kind of like to see after this first season of, them laying the groundwork and her dealing with Abomination and Titania, I'd like to see them introduce like these little known characters, that DC's kind of good about doing. And each week kind of be like a little case, and we can have an overall arching big bad. But it would be nice to see more like comic book, like break it down, little Law and Order cases every week. I'd like to see it just be a little more fun instead of like going towards the direction of another phase to work in something else. Like, let's have a little fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the conscious decision is certainly to have more fun. The length of the episodes indicate that they clearly think of this as a comedy that happens to exist within the MCU, and I mean that is an approach to She-Hulk that there's been at least for the past 30 years since the John Byrne run that we've talked about, and obviously some of the takes on her since then. It would always be interesting though, like when she was in the Avengers or Fantastic Four pages, she wouldn't break the fourth wall. She would just do it in her book, and then other characters would be like, yeah, I don't know anything about that, or like it's like, oh, they would just sort of downplay the fact that she said something weird and just move on.
Well, I don't think that's weird because she's not the star of that,
Yeah, sure.
So,
right.
Yeah.
So I think it's good. What were you going to say, Nate?
Well, what you guys are talking about now is something that Michael reminded me is like there's multiple ways to break the fourth wall, right? There's like Deadpool, like where it's part of his character, he's crazy. So it's like, is he talking to someone? It just so happens to be the audience is that crazy person for him, right? Whereas this is more of like it's almost like when you're reading a book, right? And the book, the story is being narrated by the person the book is about. So they're telling you what they were thinking and like making little jokes to the reader about something that happened. Like I'm rereading books now, and it's reminding me a lot of that. So I like that a little bit more than the like, unless you're really gonna work for it, like Deadpool, where it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
However, I agree with Eric that if they just do like there's just one little fourth wall break every episode, like it's just kind of get old. Unless it's like leading towards something, like there's like it turns out she's talking to a watcher or something like that, then okay, cool. But like if it's just one episode where every time she's gonna turn to the camera, I'm gonna be like, okay, all right, come on.
Yeah, where she's gonna make the John Krasinski face,
right?
It's gonna be like mugging to the camera. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna second something Michael said, because this show has enough episodes that it really could do what Michael described. The idea of like procedural versus serialized, and these Marvel shows have tended to only be serialized. With what's it called? With WandaVision being one that was a little bit different because every episode had its own era. So it had its own sort of like each time you tuned in was its own little unique thing going on, which was kind of cool. But I agree. I think because this has the law as a big part of it, and now that they've taken 2 episodes to set it up, I mean, I really think like Monster of the Week, Case of the Week, very much could work with the framework of this show, especially because it is like 8 or 9 episodes, whatever it is. And I think it would actually help the show because it is kind of light on its feet. Its tone is not too heavy. They could have a lot more fun. Like they definitely are having fun with these first couple, but just with the plot mechanics, because I found one issue with this episode was it was a lot of Act 1 and 2, but no 3. There wasn't really a payoff. I like the scenes. Tim Roth is always wonderful, although Blonsky is a very different guy than he was in the Ed Norton Hulk, for sure. But if you've been an Abomination for, 15, 20 years.
And I have.
He's been writing haikus.
Well, yeah, that's actually what I was going to go to next is this idea that he's reformed.
No, it's a scam.
Well, of course. Yeah. I mean,
well, I don't know.
Go ahead.
I don't think he's necessarily a nice guy, but I think he clearly has a lot more control over the Abomination stuff than he did before. Like if Bruce can sit and use science to figure out a way to meld the personalities, right? Yeah. And then now we have what wow, I forgot her name. The
Jennifer.
main character, yes, Jennifer. Now we have her relation with the Hulk, where it's like she doesn't have that repressed being, so it's like just her. So there's now this we're exploring this concept of how this transformation affects different people. So I could buy that after the years he's figured out a way to like be more calm. I don't necessarily think he's a nice guy, but clearly he's being able to do something productive for the U.S. government, which may or may not be good, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, and I'm glad they addressed it because, as we're watching as we go along, and I'm like, all right, so we're just going to ignore the fact that we saw him in Shang-Chi,
Right.
And then I was like, oh, okay, so that's where we're at timeline wise, and they are going to deal with it next week, which I think was good. Yeah, I don't know. I think that, yes, he's probably more calm than he was in the film, but I think he's just waiting till he can get out. And there was a comment in the chat from Ghost 8386. I wonder if these 7 soulmates he wants to get away with is a nod to Thunderbolts. Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
that's exactly what that is. And I feel like that's where we're headed, and I think we're actually going to see more of him after this series.
You
And
think he's going to be a Thunderbolt?
I mean, definitely from the time we saw him in Shang-Chi, I figured like, all right, there's a reason that he's around, so I assume that they're going to use him again. But do you feel as though he wouldn't work in that context? I mean, he's basically the Hulk. I mean, he's a huge asset on a team if you can keep him under control.
I really don't
I think
want
he's
it.
gonna
It's like a Killer Croc knockoff.
I think he's gonna fill the Red Hulk spot on Thunderbolts, where like
Right,
normally in the
because-
books it's Thunderbolt Ross, right, that takes it and then goes
Right,
angry
yeah.
Red Hulk. But I don't
And
think.
yeah,
they're
and I
gonna
mean,
do
I wonder
that.
if they would. I feel like they wouldn't recast Thunderbolt Ross. I
No.
think they'll just put somebody else in charge.
And also, I'd be super down for a Red Hulk that's like an older dude with like gray hair beating up the Hulk. That would be so cool. That fight would be so cool.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Eric, are you sold on Emil Blonsky's rehabilitation?
No, I mean, but I don't know if we're really supposed to be fully sold
Yeah.
on it ever, because it is, yeah, he's still the guy who destroyed half of Yonge Street in Toronto, which doesn't really look much like the Bronx, but whatever, I'll give it to them. But it's basically like we saw what this did to him. I mean, he was a soldier. He's a very different guy now. I mean, I was just thinking back, and I haven't watched the Incredible Hulk for a year or two. My son finally got around to it, and it's actually a little better than I remember. But Tim Roth's character was so like soldier, and now this dude is a very different guy. And the thing is, though, I love Tim Roth. I've been such a fan of his for decades that I think in some ways they realize like we've got a really good stable here of performers. Yes. Why should we waste Tim Roth on one film when we could bring him back over? Yeah,
well,
he's a little older,
and
but
that always
a
film that wasn't even one of theirs. I mean, that's
right.
Like that's what is that? That's a Universal movie.
No. Incredible Hulk was.
No, all the Hulk movies are Universal. Yes, It is part of the MCU, but it's like adjacent to the MCU.
Right,
it's like the deal with
it's
Sony.
Like the Sony thing,
yeah. It's why there's never been a movie with that's why Ragnarok is called Ragnarok, not Thor and Hulk, because if you put the word Hulk in the title, then Universal has to be involved, and obviously they're too busy with all their successes and their yearly reboot of the Halloween franchise. They don't have time. So,
but you're right too about the character, and because when I rewatched it this morning, and he's given his like sob story, it's like, yes, okay, they did stuff to you, but also you conveniently left out that you forced them to give you the gamma stuff when they told you that it was a bad idea, and you did it anyways. So maybe he's not as reformed as I'd like to believe.
And he, I mean, if you look at that battle, I mean, it's pretty fierce. Like it was that was a pretty cool showdown, Hulk versus Abomination. And I mean, what Abomination did in that was just brutal. So, I mean, that's still part of him. And I think that's why he would be great in Thunderbolts, is because he is so unpredictable. And that's, I mean, a lot of those superhero team ups, like, Suicide Squad. Yeah, you always have that one dude who, like, at any moment could just fly off the handle, and that adds only more excitement to it. So yeah, Thunderbolt away.
Yeah, I think that and somebody in the chat just mentioned who do we think the other 7 are. I think maybe we'll keep that in the back of our mind as this season goes along, as I feel like we might meet some more of them.
Don't we already feel like we know who half of them are?
Well, I feel like it would make sense for Titania to be one of them. I like that.
Okay.
I like that she was painted as a superpowered influencer in this episode. Is how we were introduced to her.
Aren't we thinking like U.S. agent, Yelena?
Yeah.
Maybe
Zemo.
Hawkeye? I don't even.
You mean Kate Bishop?
Echo.
Either or.
I don't
Yeah.
think Kate, because they're setting Kate up for the Young Avengers.
Well, we don't know how long that'll
Yeah, that's a
take
good point.
before.
Could be Echo.
She could have a stop on her way.
That's
No,
it's
I don't
true.
think that they've set up Kate to be this, like, I don't know.
Hawkeye's
I think
just such an important part of Thunderbolt.
Yeah, no, I do agree that she'd more likely be a Young Avenger, but that doesn't mean that she couldn't show up and get talked into the idea of Thunderbolts and be like, oh, this isn't for me, and I think Yelena might not be a Thunderbolt either, but I feel like you could see either one of them.
I think Yelena for sure.
Well, you guys are you guys thinking about it as like this literal hardcore team, or I'm thinking of it more of like Suicide Squad, like there's a mission and we're gonna pull these people together. They might not be a team forever, but they will be for one mission.
Yeah, I think I actually agree with you. I think it's more like that, like whose skill set helps them in this specific...
I think it's the other way. I don't think they go all on a bunch of missions together all the time, but I think there's some dark U.S. agency that has a stable of superpowered beings, and they send them as needed out to do stuff. And that's why he's saying, as the Abomination, with my pen pals, that people, he's either gone on a couple missions with them, or he knows that they're doing a similar thing as him, so they're all talking to each other. Like, that's the impression.
Where do you think they're talking? Is this Reddit? Is it a very exclusive Facebook group?
It's a Discord. It's obviously a Discord.
I was going to say
Thunderbolt's Discord.
I was going to say
Facebook
4chan,
Messenger,
but
they're in the metaverse.
AOL
IM, because just the way that the prison there is wired, it's unfortunately just AOL Instant Messenger. It's actually the only way that they can talk.
They don't have broadband, yeah.
No, they're getting there, but it's the government's footing the bill. So, we mentioned Titania, and Eric had something that he wanted to share that sort of is more of a real life moment. This is from the premiere, right? And specifically, you wanted Michael's feedback on what she wore to the premiere. I think it's fantastic.
Waiting.
I mean, I don't have the rest of it. That's how much you can see there.
That's all you needed.
Yeah, you just needed the top of it, basically. So,
Michael Shirley, what sayeth you?
It fits her personality.
Fair. I wish you were wrong.
She's going to also wear that to the Spiral Part 2 premiere.
Oh my God. That was a perfect answer.
Yeah, we've Cam Egan loved her dress. Cam Egan's not loving this show, she said earlier. She's in, she's watching, but it's not grabbing her in the way. Feel free to expand on that. I think that obviously with any sort of franchise fandom property that premieres, you get the usual Twitter response to it, and it was all fairly predictable after She-Hulk that the biggest problems that we would see people writing about all stem from the first word of the title, the pre-she. And I was thinking, like, some of the comments that Jennifer made in the first episode, it was all fairly basic, like obvious storytelling. It was like, yeah, it's actually, really difficult to be a woman, and these are things that you don't think about, Bruce, even before you were Hulk.
Yeah,
you
Krista,
know,
my wife like shared that meme with like a whole bunch of her friends. That one speech that's
that she
like
makes in the first episode.
yeah. That's become like popular. That one speech, and
Yeah.
I think it's dead
Yeah,
on.
and it was just like I mean, it's just saying like, you know, as a woman, you never really feel safe. You know, I mean, it's like, how many of us know women who have, you know, mace on their keychain? You know, whether they've
Mhm.
ever used it. Hopefully, they haven't had to. You know, but it's just I that's why I don't want to delve too much in what the backlash is. And I'm just like, I don't know, this is a fun show. And it's like,
Yeah.
yes,
The
she's a
backlash.
woman. Yes, she's a female
Yeah.
character, but you tuned into something called She-Hulk.
The
What did
only
you think it was
backlash
going to be?
I've heard is about the park benches at the premiere having armrests on them.
I love that you are on the same space of Twitter that I am on for that.
I'm like,
too.
what?
Wait, the park benches had
It-
what?
They
In
had
the
armrests in
show,
the. All right, it's so like.
so in the
like
show, she
connect
has
the
her.
dots.
You know how attorneys have park bench ads, right?
Yes,
So
sure.
she has her park bench ads. They show them in the show. There's some for promo material. Now, a recent
They're on
thing
the red carpet for the
for a,
premiere.
oh,
for the
they brought
stars
them for
to
the premiere.
pose.
I didn't even see that. So
Yeah.
they have. So now benches, like, you know, homeless people will sleep on the bench because they have nowhere else to go. So they start putting these things that like sit in the middle, so you can't comfortably lay on them.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
people were saying like, oh, she's supporting anti-homeless architecture. And then I don't know if you saw, there was a deeper meme too, where then somebody linked the Better Call Saul bench where it was nice and flat. And, you know,
I mean, I think that might be the difference between New Mexico and Los Angeles. I mean, I
But
think any of us who've ever lived in a city have seen
we
that,
found it.
and there's the armrest right there. So
Yeah,
that
How dare
see,
she?
now this I
How
haven't.
dare
So this is not part of what I heard. So this armrest right here is apparently.
There are
This
people
is-
literally saying they will not even watch the show because it's like ableist.
We're talking
I mean-
about polar different sides of people getting offended here. Okay, you got the people are mad she is in the title, and then
Yeah.
way over here you have the people that are mad
What
about the
They
anti-homeless
wanted to be called
architecture.
Hulk She or something.
There's
Comic
no
She.
connection. I do want to say though that I was talking to a friend actually last night about this show.
Yeah.
Before this episode, obviously, and we were talking about how, like, with, you know, as progressive media starts to become more and more common, like, often I get frustrated when it just feels forced. You know, my example is I don't want a black Superman or even a black Captain America. Like, I want a black character that is just black because that's who they are, right? So in that same vein, I think this show did a great job of addressing those issues without it feeling like, yeah, we're doing women's stuff and you guys have to listen to this. And it was just like she was just expressing her experience, and it felt really natural. And also I really liked Bruce's reaction and him like kind of understanding like, oh yeah, like I've only been thinking about this of myself because I'm a selfish man, and like there's a whole nother world of experiences that I don't know. And I thought it was really well done, and I want more of that intersectionality and representation that is just a representation of real life than what stuff that sometimes feels kind of like forcefully injected in.
Kemi Egan as the only girl in this chat. So yes, welcome to yet another Sausage Fest installment of Marvel Movie Talk. But we're glad that Kemi Egan's here. I don't have a problem with the title of the character. I don't think any of us talking about it do. I think it's just, you know, it's like if you were to scroll through the other posts from people who are complaining about this show, you could probably figure out what they don't like. You know, they don't like a female black captain on Star Trek. They don't like a woman Doctor Who. And then they also might not separately also won't like a black Doctor Who being the next one. You know what I mean? So you could kind of get, and I think that those are the loudest, smallest contingents of these various fan bases. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's She-Hulk, and yes, I'm familiar with how the character is kind of lighthearted, so I had that expectation going in. But I mean, you can kind of tell from the trailer that it's not that, you know, this isn't even Jessica Jones. You know, I mean, this is not a dark visit in the underbelly of Hell's Kitchen. You know, this is it being set in sunny Los Angeles, or, you know, the Los Angeles section of Atlanta.
So I'm a little lost. So what is the problem with the name?
Well,
She-Hulk?
just sort of that speech that Eric's talking about that some women responded to. I guess some guys felt marginalized by the idea that it's hard to be a woman, and
Oh.
that and they're just saying like, yeah, but think about how hard it is for us
Oh.
to
Okay.
be straight white men in 2022. That's really what I mean.
Yeah,
I don't know. Am I I don't think I'm oversimplifying it. Am I, Nate? I feel
you're
like
not.
you and I,
Nope.
we seem to follow a lot of the same people.
You're right on the money there.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah. So that's why you don't understand it, Michael, because it doesn't really make sense. But
I know. I don't even grasp the concept.
and
of
There's no
the thing
logic
being a-
behind it.
and even like people who I like personally, and I respect their opinions even when I disagree with them. I'm tired of suddenly you just put the word woke on something. It's like, well, this is a female as a main character, so it must be woke. I'm like, I didn't feel that at all. Look,
No.
I know a show that's a little bit too woke when I see it, and this certainly isn't even close to that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that was,
So-
I mean, and that word's being like, I mean, the midterm elections right now, like that word is thrown around left and right. And this is something we talked about with Miss Marvel. It's like, okay, if woke means we get a character like her, like Kamala Khan, then yes, okay, fine, great. Because guess what? She was such a different character than pretty much every other Marvel person we've had in the MCU, except for maybe Peter Parker. And that was awesome. That's what made that show feel really fresh. And so, yeah, that word, I'm so annoyed with how it's used, how it's weaponized, how the idea of like, I don't know, being inclusive, there's some kind of detriment to that, and reflexive of the world we actually live in. I think like, I don't know, the people who protest, I think they are, like you said, Christian, the smallest contingency, the loudest. But I feel like when you go to Comic-Con, you don't find like any of that. Like, I find like Comic-Con, everyone's kind of like chill and together, and
there's very specific reasons for why it is that way, and we could definitely get into that, but I feel like that's probably a whole nother episode that we should do.
Yeah,
Actually,
absolutely.
that'd be great.
But to bring it back a little bit to the show, I do want to ask you guys, I am always kind of on the fence, because on the one hand, as a comic book person who's read a bunch of Marvel stuff, I like the building up towards big events. I like the like moving towards these. I like little crumbs like that, but also I don't want my media to be just trailers for upcoming media.
Right.
So I feel like with this show so far, just out of the 2 episodes we've gotten, they've found a really good balance where there's a lot of references to things that are going to come, and like a lot of Easter egg dropping and stuff. But there's still enough of the content of the show that it doesn't feel like we're just watching a trailer for something coming up new. So does anybody else feel that way? Am I the only one?
Well, we were talking about that before with like the idea of like the case of the week being part of this. Like
now we've got set up for Thunderbolts, we've got set up for World War Hulk, we've got set up for they even teased Wolverine in the last episode.
Yeah.
So like.
Yeah, no, and that's that is one of the
Wolverine teaser. I don't know anything.
Yeah,
about
well, it's I have it. So since it came up, and we'll definitely address sort of the point that you're making. So there's the moment when Jen is looking for possible other jobs since she doesn't think she can be a lawyer anymore. And Eric had asked, was the Swiss Village mascot a reference to anything? I don't believe it is, but if somebody watching thinks it is, I think they just thought it was funny. But if you look to the right, there's another article you can click on, and it says "Man fights with metal claws in bar brawl," and I never know how people catch these things because I only see them when other websites post it. So
I like the Iron Man 3s.
Yeah, the Iron Man 3s right there. That is actually pretty nice. I like that.
I saw it on the second time. I just happened to be looking over, and I was like, "What does that say?" And I had to go back and read it. And again, the more that I think about this is awesome because like, how did Wolverine get introduced in a Hulk book? So like, is he gonna fight the Hulk at some point in this series? Or we probably won't get that much.
They're gonna make us buy a ticket to that. You know what I mean? They're not gonna put that on Disney Plus.
You're right.
But
maybe they'll set it up, maybe at least.
Yeah. No. Look, that doesn't mean that you see a diminutive Canadian in a flannel shirt walking out of a bar, and putting his cowboy hat on. That doesn't mean you don't. Yeah, you
exciting,
don't
but
set
it's
it up.
really scary.
What's that, Eric?
This is
Sorry, what's that, Michael?
exciting, but it's really scary.
I agree.
Yeah,
There's a little bit of trepidation too, because it could go badly also, but
yeah. And then Drew mentioned Daniel Drew. Sorry, Daniel. Daniel Drew mentions that below that is an Eternals mention. I guess it's a Celestials mention, which let me go back to that so that we can make sure that, speaking of Celestials, Eric is back. So
Maybe.
maybe. So what do we have as the other thing there? So, why is there a giant statue of a man sticking out of the ocean? Yeah, I had seen that before, and I just forgot what it said. Yes, so that was the other reference. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, look, these are questions that people would be asking. But to your point, I think so far it hasn't felt like hey, you have to watch a lot of stuff. And honestly, that was always a problem with as a comic book reader with some of the bigger crossovers, was a lot of like, clearly they were designed as in like, yeah, everybody buys X-Men, but shouldn't you buy New Mutants and Wolverine's solo book?
That's
And
my
hey,
problem.
don't forget about X Factor, so sometimes I think that shared universe, as cool as it can be, it could be very gimmicky, especially with the amount of times that like Wolverine would show up in a book that maybe he didn't have any business being in.
yeah.
But,
And then you get the little bubble. If you want to know about this, make sure you check out Wolverine
Right.
number 13.
Right, of course, exactly.
I'm starting to think Kamala's going to be Wolverine's kitty.
Well, there is a book that I think came out last week.
That's
Ms.
one of the
Marvel and
reasons why I
Wolverine.
think
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I mean, now that they're saying that they've said that she's a mutant, that could definitely be something.
Oh,
but
that's
I don't know. I feel like Jubilee is going to be Wolverine's Jubilee, so I'm not that
Who?
worried about it. Jubilee would be Wolverine's Jubilee. Like they'll have like a young character on the X-Men to be like, or Kitty. I mean, there'll be that character. There's always somebody. So. But yeah, I mean, when we discussed the first 5 issues of the Kamala Khan run of Ms. Marvel over on the Geekscape Book Club, I talked about how I had read ahead to a couple of issues later where she is with Wolverine, and I like that dynamic. I've always liked that dynamic. Wolverine's a guy who's 150 years old, so he feels like he's got some degree of knowledge that he can share. But I wanted to backtrack to that point that Nate brought up. And what do you think, Michael? Are you worried about like, yeah, we got to use this show to set up, the 4 movies that are coming up next year? Not that we've necessarily seen that, but is there concern that it could kind of degrade into that?
One of the things I think that makes creatives even better is setting boundaries for them. So if you have like these check marks, like we need to work in this character, we need to work in this character, and you can find a good way to do it, that's great. But if it's not done well, that's my only worry about that. I think that having limitations can make people even more creative. So just I guess I would think it would just be about how it was approached by the person writing it. Are they looking at it as a chore to work in these points, or are they making it? Is it something that
part of the creative decision?
Yeah, like adds to the excitement of oh my god, we can do this.
For this second episode, was there an email from Feige that was like, yeah, whatever you do, it's fine. You just have to show Bruce flying away on a spaceship because that's what we're going to be, selling whatever.
That was really cheap, by the way.
I agree.
I am on the opposite side. I actually like that because I think you have to remember too that we are not the average viewer of these shows.
That's fair.
Even among comic book people, we are deeper than that. So like we don't see the ship from that movie and not think like, oh, World War Hulk, he's going back there. They're starting this. But there's plenty of other people that are just like, oh, alien ship, Hulk's doing Hulk stuff. Like they're not gonna like see it as a lead into a movie. They're just gonna see it as superhero stuff. So I thought it was done well, but with how dramatic it was, and also placing at the end of the episode was kind of like, ooh, look what we're doing. But
Oh, why did we even get that post-credit scene? I can't with the parents.
For a house?
Just going back to that, to like her helping out around the house.
Yeah,
I think that they're using the post-credit scene in these first two episodes as things that happened earlier in the episode, but just slowed it down needlessly. So then they just stick it in. I mean, I think a lot of shows have done that, where like the post-credit scene is actually from earlier in the episode, but it wasn't as important. But you feel otherwise, Michael.
What's up with these families? They're like, go for it. Yeah, it's like, my family would be like, absolutely not. We got
some people's families are very supportive of their dreams, Michael. And I only say that because I know your parents watch, and I know that your parents are incredibly supportive.
Yeah.
I might be speaking about other people.
I guess I feel like Kamala, and like it's just like having both of those right in a row. I'm just kind of like, what's with the parents? Like,
but you know what?
They want a superhero outfit too? Like what?
Maybe. But it goes back to theme. I mean, I think in the case of She-Hulk, like her family's not the problem. Yeah, like her problem is like work. Her problem is like perception. So like if they also gave her a family completely against all this, I feel like it would just be sort of one thing too many. And so in essence saying, no, the family's not the problem, except they're just a weird family. So it's a problem,
I want
like
her
a lot
dad
of
and Kamala's dad to go have like a dad day together.
I think that they would have fun. And
I think that's
we mentioned it last week, and very excited that we get the return of Mark Lynn Baker from Perfect Strangers to our screens. Ken guest spot by Bronson Pinchot be too far away, as I also said last week.
I could not figure out what I recognized him from.
Well,
it took me. I had to Google it.
Now. I'm pretty sure Perfect Strangers ended more than 30 years ago.
I don't know if I've ever even watched Perfect Strangers, but
that's your homework, mate.
I had seen his face.
Yeah, I mean, and the Perfect Strangers goes far enough back that Family Matters was actually a spin-off of it. So that's perfect. How long ago.
What? With no Mark Lynn Baker, we have no Urkel.
The mom worked. The mom worked as the elevator operator at the newspaper they worked at, and so Reginald Vell Johnson shows up as her husband at some point, and then I think they did one of those episodes where it's like, the main characters aren't in the episode of a show. It's just like a pilot, and you're like, when you watch them in syndication,
backdoor pilot.
Yeah. But anyway,
real quick, Mark Lynn Baker also, if you guys ever want to be really depressed for, 30 episodes, watch The Leftovers. Because there's a whole plot line centered around him.
That's where I know him from.
Yeah.
It's from The Leftovers.
I love that show.
And he played himself. And then they even do
he played Mark Lynn Baker?
Yes. It's very...
And they do a dramatic version of the Perfect Strangers theme, like with an orchestra. That is the greatest moment in the history of television for my money, which ain't much.
Well, I guess you didn't see
so much of those references from that show about that show are lost on me because I've never seen it and I still enjoyed it. So
yeah. I guess you never saw the guy throwing axes on the Tonight Show if you think that's the best moment in TV history, but that's all right. So I don't know. I feel like the family, boy, there was a lot of them. That was my thought on the family scene. I was just like, you got, I don't know. I wasn't sure who everybody was. You could tell that dad was dad and mom was mom. And for some reason, that guy's a manager at Best Buy. And I'm like, is that just product placement? Is that really the only reason why he said he's a manager at Best Buy? I was just like, I don't know. But I guess we'll see how they balance all of that. Before we run out of time, I wanted to get to some of these comments in the chat. Kemi Egan said, this is a comment that Nate made a while ago. The final battle in Endgame, when all the female heroes teamed up, was forced and pointless, in my opinion. My friend Zia, that I used to do a version of this show with, agreed. She felt like they were just like, let's just put all the gals together. And then also Dominica Saxon, like Nate said, I don't need a new Captain America being Mexican like me. Make a whole new character that's Mexican instead of stealing another character's identity. And in response, somebody said, does that mean you have a problem with Miles Morales being Spider-Man? And I think it's a different Spider-Man, but it's a fair point. And I forget who raised it. There's a whole thing going on in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a discussion to be had about that. And
yeah,
if you're asking me personally, I do like Miles as a character. I mean, I like Brian Michael Bendis a lot as a writer, so I liked the book and all of that stuff. But yeah, if it was up to me, I would rather have Miles be his own hero in his own space than be in the shadow of Spider-Man, because at least for me, Spider-Man is always Peter Parker. Are there other Spider-Men and Spider-Women that have come now? Yes, absolutely. But Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So in that same way, I want, like, if there was like a white Blade, it'd be like, all right, cool. I'm happy you guys got, some more vampire representation, but like Blade is black, so it's like, I'm not opposed to seeing more diversity. I just want it to be more genuine. That's all I want. I don't want black Superman in the comic book because they're like, all right, it's time we have a black Superman. No, like, bring back there are black characters even in like DC stuff. There's people for them to go with. You know what I'm saying? Like, just put a little more effort into it than just what is making the most money. Okay, now let's try to make that diverse so we can market to more people and say, look at how diverse we are. Like, right. It's instead of it being trying to represent people in the audience, it's just about how can we make more money because this is what sells now. And so that's the issue for me personally.
And then also Ghost says, I'm a black guy myself. I disagree with
Captain America is my favorite comic book character. Okay. And I love Sam Wilson, and I really enjoy the book arcs that they go through when Cap loses his shield and then he dies, and then he, Falcon's Cap, and I like all of that stuff as well. And if we had got a Falcon movie or a Falcon series, if he had a chance to be his own character, then I would have no problem with it. But the problem is we only got him as a side character, and then now that Steve is gone, it's like, all right, cool. Now you're the new Cap. In the books, Falcon was his own person. He had his own sidekick for a long time. So when he finally took over for his friend, Steve Rogers, where they were like equals, compatriots together, it had much more impact. Plus, it was temporary. So
yeah, and there was also a point in the 70s where that book was called Captain America and the Falcon. So it was like
also
every
that show was just not that good. To be honest with you, like, that show was not that good. It was boring. I'm sorry, it was boring. It was very up and down.
I feel like one of us agrees with you, but am I wrong? Or am I wrong? I think Michael, you didn't love that show, but maybe I'm wrong.
Oh no, this conversation is getting deep, and like I had this joke. It was like,
all right, we can eject.
Color about like Miles Morales, the brown recluse, didn't have his like good of a ring. Like, I don't know. Y'all just go on.
you just keep going. But no, I think it's a, it's like, I think the concern would be, and probably judging from financials, maybe Warner Brothers is the one that's more likely to, you take Superman and then you reboot him and like, well, now he's black, instead of like, at least Black Adam is a different character, and I mean it's
Black Adam isn't black.
I mean he is now. So
is The Rock black? I don't think so at all. No,
like,
again, this is a whole nother episode. Of
Samoan and black.
The genetic breakdown.
That's true, but that's a great point. In Men in Black, only one of them is black. So that's Tommy Lee Jones is the other one.
It wasn't called Black Men.
I know. I was just trying to wind it up. But look, these are all things to explore.
This is
in
what
the
happens when
future.
they give us a 22-minute episode.
Yeah, I
This
know.
is why we need more content.
Yeah.
It's amazing how a
to
snake
put a
changing around
tag on
that
Michael's
title
joke,
changes that whole
Dominica
movie.
Saxon says we have brown recluses here and you do not mess with them. So
No, you don't. Like your flesh.
and I know Dominica Saxon well enough to know he lives in Idaho. So any kind of recluse in Idaho is probably somebody just keep your distance from. You got a little bit of a Ted Kaczynski vibe from that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some white recluses up there too.
Yeah, I would think. I think that just anybody who lives there, you're a recluse because your neighbor's like 30 miles away. But you tell me if I'm wrong, Dominica Saxon. In any case, we will be back to talk more She-Hulk next week. Hopefully we get, I don't know, is it crazy to want like a 31-minute episode? I know the first one was 38, but I guess there was a lot to fit into that. So I guess we'll just we'll see where we go. And I guess next episode, it would stand to reason we get the cameo from Wong. Anything that you'd particularly like to see next week, Nate?
I mean, I want to see some action because we didn't get any of that this week. Like, I think part of what made that first episode so good was we just jumped right into it. They skipped right past all the like becoming a superhero stuff, and then we got to see like a little bit of Hulk on Hulk. That actually, I'm not going to finish that sentence, but I would like to see more Hulk.
Yeah,
more Hulk doing Hulk stuff, whether it's She-Hulk or Hulk or Abomination Hulk. I want some heavy things being thrown. That's what I want.
What about you, Michael? What would you like to see? That outfit that Jamal wore.
I never want to see that outfit again. I hope they have her in some orange jumpsuit. But I did think that was a little off that they didn't even bring her up. It's kind of like makes you not really take that character that seriously in my head.
You're talking about Titania?
Yeah, like, oh, she's not that important. They took her off to jail. Like,
I'm assuming,
I want them to flesh her out a little more. If
I would assume they will.
Her more than one season,
Yeah.
Or keep her in the Marvel universe. But I don't know. I really don't have any other expectations other than what I've said previously in the show.
What about you, Eric? Do you want an appearance by the actual Hulk, Terry Hogan, who we started the episode talking about? Is that really what you're looking for?
I mean, honestly, it's always what I'm looking for, regardless of.
But as a bad guy, as Hollywood Hogan, right? That's what you really want.
Yeah. That's wearing all black and the black dyed beard.
Don't peel back my wrestling knowledge beyond that. That's as far as I can go. So don't ask no follow-up questions.
I did. I kept it very skin deep.
Good. I appreciate that.
Honestly, what I'm looking for in this next episode is they've set it up now. So now I would like to see some of the, I don't know, mechanics of the story that it could have. See her in court and then see her having to deal with something outside of the court about the case. Give her a tussle or two.
I like this actually. Daniel has a great visual. I can't imagine a waiting room of potential heroes or possibly, low-level villains like we talked about earlier in the episode, just kind of waiting. It's like, oh yeah, there's like 6 people here to see you, and they're all like little cameos for.
It's the superhero version of Better Call Saul, right?
Yeah.
So like he his waiting room was one of the great running jokes of that show, is like what kind of miscreants were there. So yeah, like low level B level superheroes all looking for her to represent them, I think would be amazing. So yeah, I think now they spent 2 episodes, including this one that didn't really have, as you said, Nate, like any action. So now it's time, like, okay, you've done your Act 1 work, get us in Act 2. Let's see some of this like world you've built actually spin and actually move forward, because all the parts are already in place. So hopefully now we actually get the thing that is this show, that is Attorney at Law, She-Hulk Attorney at Law.
I am hoping for more, not just in terms of runtime, but in terms of the action next week. And we will be back next week as well, talking more about this. Until then, Nate, where can people find you?
You can find me everywhere at Dog Like Nate. But if you really want to argue with me about my takes, Twitter's the best place for that.
Well, there's someone in the chat who might take you up on that. Ghost8386, just like Jeff, our friend Jeff Williams, not a fan of Nate Miller. Also, not a fan of Zia Anderson. So
That's so
He
funny.
Ghost-
wasn't a fan of me
Jeff.
for a good week, so
I think you
don't know
won
if
him
I've
over.
gotten back in his good
yeah.
favor.
Ghost, whatever I need to do to stay on your good side, just let me know. I'll change any opinions.
My favorite part about that is like I just saw Jeff a few days ago, and we were just talking about how much fun we had doing shows together. So that's so funny that you know this guy that I know in person better than me.
I think the two of you should do a show together, and only he is allowed to watch it.
One viewer, yeah.
Yeah.
Just yeah, it's
Only
like
Ghost.
that's like the ultimate Patreon. What is Ghost on? And Eric, where can you be found?
Well, I'm at some places that count Eric Connor, and if you want to argue with me about my points of view, the Arby's parking lot on Sunset, anytime, just name it.
Right under the 10-gallon hat, because like Arby's, Eric has the meats.
Yeah.
And of course, Michael Shirley, where can we find you?
Man, my Instagram stories is popping. You find
It
me at I
is.
Hate Michael Shirley. Is it? You like it?
Of course.
It's odd. It's
And then
odd.
there's also the side conversations we have that are not for public.
I really
consumption.
need to check my Instagram today because I sent Christian all this good stuff last
I gotta
night.
go. I gotta go check it.
Response.
And of course on Twitter, Michael X Shirley.
Yeah.
And something that was new at the comic book store last week is Edge of Spider-Verse #2. Friend of a friend wrote one of the stories in here. Her name's Mallory, and
Oh, really?
so I picked it up.
She's a
but
cool looking
also-
character. Who's that on the front? Do you
Oh
know?
my
I haven't
God, is
read
that
it
a
yet. I'll
Black
tell you-
Spider Woman?
Yeah, so that's a problem right there, even in the
Uh-oh.
Spider-Verse. And then also our friend Jordan Bloom, who did MODOK, he and
Mhm.
Patton Oswalt have a new book from Dark Horse. This is the Mike Mignola variant of Minor Threats. It is a really cool idea. Sorry that I just hit my microphone. Very professional. Of sort of low-level supervillains in a very similar to the DC/Marvel universe, but it's a completely fabricated. They came up with their own universe. It's an interesting story. So because he was kind enough to be on the show a couple times, I wanted to send people that way. But call ahead and make sure you have it. I had to go to 4 stores, 3 stores, all in Burbank. None of them had ordered it. So
Patton
call ahead
Oswalt
for mine.
wrote it?
What's that?
He wrote it?
Yeah,
Patton Oswalt is
Jordan
Yeah, they
and
did a
Patton
MODOK.
Oswalt have done a few things together, starting with a
Yeah.
MODOK comic because they did the MODOK series together.
I did hear about that. I haven't read
Yeah.
it, but I heard it was good.
Yeah, and so then this Minor Threats is something that it's creator owned. So if it gets turned into a movie, they get to keep all the money. So that's what I'm pushing for their sake. In any case, it's high noon, which means it's time to go. Thank you all for your time in the chat. Very lively conversation as always. We'll see you next week. Until then, as the great Stan Lee would say,